Hello to all FPL players, welcome back to another video. Today I want to go through some of the hot topics for the upcoming Game Week 18, and also I'm going to show my team selection at the end of the video too. So let's start off with a little bit of a short review for Game Week 17. So my Game Week 17 is still not good enough. My points is still not good enough to push me further up rank. I think the decision to go with Nunez over Mitrovic have slightly cost me that up rank, but I'm not complaining because I still think that Darwin Nunez did really well. The only issue with him in that game is his finishing, which sadly resulted in a 2-pointer. I'm glad I went light on defense this week, as this is a high scoring week where many teams score many goals. All of my midfield and forwards got some sort of attacking returns except for De Bruyne and Darwin Nunez. I'm glad my decision to go with Martial actually paid off with 1 goal, but it would have been a little bit more better if I had got enough money to transfer in Rashford. But in the end, it was a case of going with either Almiron or Rashford, and I choose Almiron because that guy has been so consistent before the World Cup. So it's my bad on this one. And also in the end, Walker did not play for Man City, which was quite disappointing. But I think even if he had played, he won't get that clean sheet points either because City concedes. And overall, I think the Game Week 17 score looks quite positive, and I'm happy with the outcome despite the slight red arrow. So before we get into team selection, let's talk a little bit about Darwin Nunez first. So now a lot of people are quite disappointed with Nunez because if you look at his attacking stats for the last game, it's all good, right? The only issue is his lack of goals there. But if you consider his entire gameplay in that match, he actually did quite well. His XG for expected goals is 1.16, and which shows that he actually underperformed and should have gotten goals in the game. He took a decent amount of shots in the game. Most of the shots taken is in the penalty box. His shot accuracy is very high too, with 66.7% accuracy. This means Darwin Nunez is actually taking plenty of shots close to the goalpost. He's quite accurate too, as most of his shots are on target. And also, if you look at the big chances, he has 4. This means that his Liverpool teammates are constantly looking out for him, and they are supplying him with plenty of goal scoring opportunities too. So Darwin Nunez is a player that actually knows how to get into position to receive the ball. He knows where to shoot, he knows where to put it on target. He's a very intelligent player, which is a perfect number 9 for the Liverpool team. So it's not an issue of poor gameplay or fundamentals in this game. I think the fundamentals and the gameplay is good. It's just a problem of poor finishing on any given day with the decent amount of chances that you give to Darwin Nunez, and with this kind of stats, he could have scored even a hat-trick. So now the big question is, should you be selling Darwin Nunez? For me, I think the answer is no. You should not be doing that. Because if you have Darwin Nunez, you should be keeping him because his gameplay is good. In fact, I would even encourage you to buy him. If Liverpool wants to win game without Diogo Jota, Luis Diaz, and Firmino, their only option is to ensure both Darwin Nunez and Mo Salah to perform, which means I feel that the Liverpool team will continue to look out for him. They will continue to supply Darwin Nunez with chances and goal scoring opportunities, and he will continue to be the main focal point in attack until all the other injured Liverpool players are back. And so in summary, he's a keep or buy, but definitely not a sell. Now we all know that Reece James has now re-injured his knee, unfortunately, and he could potentially be out for at least 3 to 4 weeks, I think. So I want to talk a little bit about some potential players that could actually replace James. We know that James is 5.8 million and he is super attacking. Most of the FPL players got James in their team to get attacking return. So you may be looking at defenders who are also attacking by nature, and their price tag is not too far away from James' price tag. There are a few options here, I feel. The first option is Perisic, right? For Spurs itself, they have 2 decent fixtures coming up. They are Aston Villa and Crystal Palace. After these 2 games, they will most likely have a double game week, and they will finish off with Fulham, which is quite a good run of fixture. The only issue here is Perisic minutes and age. He's constantly subjected to rotation risk, and his minutes are uncertain. If you want a more more near-on minutes left back. You can also look at Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw from Manchester United is obviously going to start every game, and also the next two fixture is amazing. Wolves and Bournemouth are two of the most weakest defense in the Premier League. The next two games aren't that great. They face Man City and Arsenal, but afterwards Crystal Palace and Leeds are both decent opponents. Shaw is also much more cheaper than Perisic. He's only 4.8 million with a decent price tag. And if you want someone even more cheaper at 4.7 million, you can go for Castiani. I'm not sure whether I pronounced the name correctly, but I think it's called Castiani. And his next game is against Liverpool, which is a difficult game, but his upcoming fixture are pretty good. After Liverpool, Leicester will face Fulham, Forest, Brighton, Aston Villa, and also he's quite a consistent player. He started every game. He's super attacking with a higher XG than most defenders, I would say, and his price tag are the cheapest among the three options. So if you downgrade James to a Shaw or Castellani, you can use the remaining transfer budget to upgrade to another midfielder or forward. So I think that these three players are probably your best option as a replacement for Reece James too. Now obviously Mitrovic did really well last game against Crystal Palace. A lot of FPL players are already looking to transfer in Mitrovic. Now I'm not saying that Mitrovic is a bad pick, but there are a few concerns that I feel that you should be careful on this transfer. In the last game against Crystal Palace got 2 red cards and they had to play the remaining 30 minutes with a 9-man. Also, majority of the shots and 2 of the goals that Fulham have scored after that, they scored after that 2 red cards. So is it possible that without this 2 red card, without such situation, that Mitrovic would not be able to get so many attacking returns? This point is something to consider. And before this Crystal Palace game, the Fulham manager Marco Silva actually has been telling the media that Mitrovic is not fully fit and he's a doubt for the Crystal Palace game. And because of his past foot injury, so under what kind of condition is Mitrovic going to play in the next game? Or even worse, could he even be rested for the next game if his injury worsens? Because if you transfer him this game week and he's rested, you practically just waste one transfer, And also, if you want to consider Mitrovic, you have to consider that he's on 4 yellow cards and just 1 more yellow will get him suspended. And this is there is the difficult game coming up after the Southampton game, because Mitrovic is going to face Southampton, and then afterwards, he's going to face some difficult opponent. Fulham is going to face Leicester, Chelsea, Newcastle, Spurs, and Chelsea again. So these are all not easy game, and I'm not so sure how well Mitrovic is going to do here. Now, I'm not saying that Mitrovic is a bad player. Please don't misunderstand me. Mitrovic is a good player, but he could still score against this difficult opponent. He could still prevent himself from getting broke and suspended for the next few game weeks. I'm just saying that all these factors are probably something for you to consider before you make that decision to transfer him in. It's an additional factors for you to consider, to take into consideration before you decide to transfer Mitrovic in. Now, because personally, my team has already Martial, Darwin Nunez, and Haaland. Haaland is untouchable. Darwin Nunez did really well in the last game, so I'm not going to replace Darwin Nunez with Mitrovic. And Anthony Martial, he's going to play against Wolves, and I think Wolves is a much more easy opponent compared to Southampton. Yes, Wolves did win their game against Everton last game, but I feel that one game doesn't make a difference to their team form. So I feel that Anthony Martial, in this Manchester United squad right now, he's going to perform well in this Wolves game. So I'm not going to waste one transfer to replace Martial with Mitrovic, knowing that Martial could very well score the same amount of points or even higher than Mitrovic. So this is the reason why I'm not going to transfer in Mitrovic at this moment. I may do so in the next game week because Fulham is going to have their double game week, but it would depend on whether Mitrovic, what kind of condition is he going into the next game week? If he's fit and he's not suspended, he didn't get his yellow in the next game, then maybe I will consider transferring in for one of my strikers, maybe Martial or something. So let's talk about my team selection for game week 18, and let's start off with a blank page. Before I talk about my team, I want to straight up tell you that I'm not going to use my free transfer this game week. The reason is because I'm saving up my free transfer for game week 19 in case I need it. First up, for my goalkeeper, I've gone for Kepa again, because this is a great fixture for Kepa, as Forest is one of the worst teams in the Premier League that scored only 11 goals so far in this season, and compare that to Leicester, where Danny Ward will face Liverpool for the next game. I think it's obvious who I'm going for in my goalkeeper section, and it will be Kepa. And moving on to my defense, Trippier is one such player that will be permanently on my team, and he is facing Leeds, who is quite vulnerable right now, and there's a decent chance that he could get another attacking return in this game. Now I know that Walker did not start in that game, but I do not have any options here, right? In terms of Kyle Walker, because the double game is coming up soon, and I want to save my free transfer for game week 19, and two of my defenders are in the worst fixture ever. Bleno is facing Manchester United and Patterson is facing Manchester City. These two are perhaps two of the most difficult opponents to face now in the Premier League. So I know that the risk, that Walker might not play, or he might get sub on for the few minutes and get a 1-pointer. But I think I'm prepared to take that risk rather than going for Bleno or Patterson. And next in my defense is Ben White. Now, Brighton is not an easy game, but Arsenal form has been really good recently, that I won't be surprised if they manage to keep a clean sheet. Moving up to my midfield, we have De Bruyne facing off against Everton. I know De Bruyne did not perform to the level I wish to see in the last game, but his vision and passing is still lethal in that game. He's a very intelligent player, and I think against Leeds in the last game, he played an extremely high press. So every time you see De Bruyne gets the ball, there will be like 3 or 4 Leeds players surrounding him. So it's very difficult for him to, do anything in that game. He's so heavily watched and so heavily marked, because everyone knows that he's one of the star players in the Manchester City squad. But in this game week, Everton is a very different team. They kind of sit back a little bit and invite some pressure. So I think that against Everton, Manchester City may have a good game, and this could be a good game for De Bruyne too. And then we have Martinelli, who seems to have picked up where he left off before the World Cup. His ability to make that run and cut inside the penalty box is a threat to every defenders right now in the Premier League. Another heavyweight midfielder in my team is Salah. Mo Salah has been so dangerous in the last game. He got 1 goal and 1 assist in the last game, and against Leicester, who just lost 3-0 to Newcastle, I think Salah has a decent chance of performing well in this Leicester game. And once again, Almiron, he scored again, and I'm just glad that I picked him up in the free transfer. I have missed him out in the past. I've missed out a lot of points because I refuse to transfer in Almiron, and I have to learn the hard way after so many game weeks. And the next game is against Leeds, who has one of the worst, if not the worst, defensive record in the Premier League this season. I feel really good about Almiron in this game. Moving on to my forward, first up we have Anthony Martial. Martial did really well to score 1 goal in the last game against Forest. Now what he has to do is to be consistent so he doesn't lose his place in the first team at Manchester United. I think if he can score once again with Oof, his future will look very bright again in this Manchester United squad. As for Darwin Nunez, he did so well except for scoring goals and providing assists, right? These are probably 2 of the things that he didn't do well in the game, but in terms of gameplay and fundamentals, I think he did really well. Like I say, he's a very intelligent player who knows how to get into the good position on the page. He knows how to anticipate and predict when to make that run or where to receive the pass and which position of the page he's supposed to receive the pass. And I think sooner or later, with that kind of performance he has in the last game, he will eventually score once again. And Haaland is just an an obvious pick against Everton at home. There's no reason for me not to go for Haaland here, considering the form he has been in the last game. And my bench consists of Ward, Andrews, Bleno, and Patterson. 3 of the bench players are facing difficult opponents, so it makes sense to bench them. Ward is facing against Liverpool, Bleno is facing Man U, and Patterson is facing Manchester City. Only Andrews and I would say only Andrews has decent opponent in Southampton, but there's no other players that I would sacrifice his place for Andrews in this game week. So for captain, I'm putting it on Haaland, and Darwin Nunez will be my vice captain for this game. Alright guys, we have come to the end of the video. If you do like my content, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for future FPL content. I want to say all the best to everyone for game week 18, and it's a happy new year to all of you. We say goodbye to 2022, and I shall see you all again. Goodbye.